welcome to Money Talks. We're gonna get deeply personal, but first, I'm Gaby Dunn. I wrote a book called Bad with Money, and I have a podcast called Bad with Money, and it's about being bad with money. And then this is our STEAM panel, and we're gonna go down the line and tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey everyone, my name's Yunah Lee. I'm the CFO of a company called Goat Group. We connect buyers and sellers over their passion in the sneaker marketplace.
Great. Hi y'all, Ramona Ortega. I'm the CEO and founder of My Money, My Future, and we are here to empower the next generation of women, multicultural millennials to be confident with their money.
Yes. Hey ladies, I'm Nicole Lapin. I was an anchor on CNN, CNBC, and Bloomberg. I am the author of a book called Rich Bitch and Boss Bitch. And I have my third book, Becoming a Superwoman, coming out in September. And I'm wearing a Britney mic. I'm pretty stoked about it.
Hi, I'm Arlan Hamilton, and that is on. And I am the managing partner of Backstage Capital. The quick version of it is I was on food stamps 5 years ago and now have raised over $10 million to invest in 125 companies, along with my team, that are all led by underrepresented founders, so women, people of color, LGBT. And I'm sitting in this chair because I felt that if I sat there, I would not be able to get back up.
This is gonna eat me up.
Yeah, so I feel this is the right decision that we all made.
Shockingly comfortable for the same material
really
as a middle school fence. Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about why do people in general, but women as well, why do we feel so guilty talking about money? And I'll start with Yunah.
Oh dear, okay.
You're next to me.
I think it's a balance. So I think people find money to be a very personal topic, in which case, if they're very, very successful, then perhaps they feel as though I need to be humble, I need to be gracious, I'm a little uncomfortable sharing my success, and perhaps women feel that way sometimes. I also think if you're not as successful or you feel as though you haven't made it, then maybe you feel a little bit of embarrassment and shame. And I think what's really important about this panel is that all of us, I imagine, want you guys to feel confident to talk about it because we want you to get something out of it and to learn something. So I encourage all of you to be as open and honest about money as possible.
So for us, this is actually a major theme. We're actually working on a book right now called No Shame in the Money Game, A Broke Girl's Guide to Building Wealth. And it's really about, because communities of color, especially in women and women of color, have really been on the sort of broke end of the spectrum for so long that we're really trying to figure out how do we build wealth for our communities. And there's so much shame around being poor. I mean, there's stories upon stories, I'm sure, in this room, as immigrant women, as working class women, as women of color. We don't grow up with money, and so we feel a lot of shame for not having it. And so this is what we're trying to change, I think, with this conversation, with the work that we're doing, the work that all of us here in this room are doing, to make sure that we don't have that shame. It is a system, and we're learning the system, we're learning the rules of the game.
And I think when you write the rules, you're destined to win, right? And I think when we go to dinner with our girlfriends, we'll talk about everything before we talk about money, right? Like sex, no problem. Bikini wax, no problem. And I'm like, how much are you making now? Or how much is in your bank account, to my girlfriends? Because I love them and I want to help them. It's not coming from a place of antagonizing. And it's crickets. I'm like, girl, you just told me about your landing strip and you're not gonna tell me about what's in your bank account? Like, this is an issue, and we have to change it. And I think the way to do that is to go first. And so in my books, they're all 12-step plans, because the first step is admitting you have a problem, and I got more issues than Vogue. But I think it has to start with somebody. When we go first, we give other people license to do the same. So I talk about my salaries, I talk about what I made for my books, because I'm like, someone's gonna read this, they're gonna be curious. So I'm just gonna write, I'm not gonna ask my publisher, whatever. And I think it's the whole thing, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. So somebody's got to go first.
You have some interesting conversations with your girlfriend. There's a lot happening there. I think, so to piggyback off of what Ramona was talking about, I think there is a lot of shame that is put on by other people. Like, you know, men kind of shame. I'm super gay, so I wouldn't know really. But I think, you know, like,
Happy Pride, everyone.
Also highly recommend it for anyone who has not tried that yet. It's the weekend to do so.
I'll second it.
Yeah. So, but I think there's that dynamic of you don't want to like outdo your boyfriend or your husband. I've read about it in the magazines. But I think like when it comes to like women of color, once you do have some modicum of success, a lot of times this generation or the one right after mine, you are maybe one of the first to have cracked maybe the six-figure income. And so there's this survivor's guilt that also happens, and you don't want to brag about it. You also may have a little bit of, you don't want people coming for you to be an ATM, because I've seen that happen. And I have a new podcast called Your First Million, where I interview people about their money. Yeah, one person, woo! Yeah. Woo! Thank you, appreciate it. You can check it out on iTunes and Spotify, thank you. And I asked them point blank about their money, and the funny thing is, all I had to do was really ask. And I think a lot of people, like you said, so it kind of works, because if you go first, people sometimes do want to talk about it. They do want to kind of compare notes and have that conversation. It's just that no one's that first person. So, be the audacious one in the group.
First. You never forget your first.
Yeah, see? You see? Yeah.
There's a theme here.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I found that salary transparency, talking about your salary, is something that allows for like closing of the wage gap a bit, or people being able to negotiate or ask for like what they're worth for stuff. A lot of it, like when I first started YouTube stuff and we were getting brand deals, I would be like, what did this brand pay you?
Yeah.
So that I knew that I could go back to them and be like, excuse me, you paid this person X amount, because they're banking on you not knowing that.
Yeah.
A lot of places are like, hope that, here's my conspiracy, and it's not really a conspiracy, that people at the top don't want people lower to the bottom to know, because if we do, then we can start changing stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, no,
Yeah.
put your pitchforks away. So I know you mentioned being on food stamps. Can you talk a little bit about like if you guys had some sort of financial low point and what made you want to turn it around, or how you turned it around? You want to go?
Yeah, my financial low point was from 1980 until 2015.
Nice. Nice.
It was an innocent time.
Yeah.
So far long ago. I think I saw that question. That's the only question I remember, and I was like, yeah. So it's been talked about a lot. If you've heard anything about me, that I also have been like various versions of homeless and degrees of homeless all throughout my adult life, or half of my adult life. I think there's just these moments that a lot of people can just relate to. Like I used to, when I was on food stamps, which I really appreciate that I was on food stamps. I really appreciate any of that sort of help. When I was on food stamps, I was like, I got to eat healthy still. So I get, grapes to me were like the candy of the fruit. Everybody knows that, right? It's candy, it's strawberries covered in chocolate, or it's grapes, and you're 4 food groups. So I get my grapes, and I'd go, to check out, and grapes are expensive. But you got to do what you got to do for the cause. And so, I would peel grapes off of the vine to make it just under the amount that I had. So that's just like it's like a visual that you can look at. I didn't go eat them in the corner. I should have, but I didn't do that. But it's sort of, that, or just like not having a place to live, or not knowing if you're going to eat that day. Or you ever see Saturday Night Live when Kate McKinnon is in that? Yeah, exactly. Where she's in that sketch where like the aliens come down, and I always feel like that when something is, but I feel like we won't hear, but I feel like that all the time. It's like someone's like, yes, well, I got down to $2,000 in my bank account, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to have to break into my savings, and then I'm like, yeah, so it's a little different for me. So I slept on the floor of the airport and helped people in the international section find their gates for several amount of time, but that's a little bit of it.
What for you guys? Like, what made you sort of be like, okay, I need to be doing money stuff, or I need to get my money stuff in order and like help other people?
Well, I think what's cool about this panel is that we're probably all really least likely people to become money experts. I was born first generation American, immigrant family, never spoke about any sort of money stuff. Like, I didn't have the Wall Street Journal on the kitchen counter. Nobody was like, let's talk about stocks and bonds today. My father died of a drug overdose when I was 11. My mother pieced out. And so I was on my own starting at 15, and I just needed a job. And so I thought I wanted to be in TV, and they offered me a job in business news. I stalked this station chief outside of Chicago. I really wanted this job in Milwaukee, and I thought that was like the end all be all. And he's like, you don't get that job, but do you know anything about business? And I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely. I love business news all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Yeah. And I totally lied. And I faked it till I made it. And what I realized, I started on the floor of the Chicago Merc when I was 18. And yeah, I didn't have a backstop. I didn't have a couch to go to if I failed. Failure was not an option. And so I realized that money is just a language like anything else. We just don't have a Rosetta Stone for it growing up. Yeah. If you go to China and you don't speak Chinese, you'd be really fucking confused. If you go to Wall Street and you don't speak the language of money, you'd be really confused. And so it drives me crazy. I mean, we learn such ridiculous things growing up, like geometry and how to dissect a frog and the Pythagorean theorem. I'm like, what? Can we learn how to do a budget and do our taxes and do a business plan? Like, that would be...
And so I think this is a great pickup, but that's exactly why we started My Money, My Future. It was like, okay, I didn't know about this stuff. What would I have told my 20-year-old self? I've been working since I was 15. My parents are farm workers from California. First generation to go to college, and actually I was here at UCLA struggling. I was been triggered all weekend. I was like, damn, I couldn't pay anything, I didn't have any money for food. I was like, it was not fun. But I think, when we talked about like sort of the language of finance, right? So we ended up going to Wall Street, and I was like, oh shit, I'm making 6 figures, but I was still broke as fuck. I was like, I had no wealth. We had no legacy wealth. We had no economic security. I was like, yeah, I had that paycheck coming in, but the minute I left that job, I didn't have anything else, right? And so I really started to look at sort of building wealth internally in terms of your community and then your family, and sort of like, how do we do that? Because when I was working as a corporate securities attorney, I was like on Wall Street, I was in there deep into like how these people were managing their money. I was like, y'all don't want us to know this. Because once we know, and it's not that complicated, then the whole game gets screwed, right? And so and that's what we're really trying to do, I think, with My Money, My Future. And where's my money squad? I got my girls out there. We got a whole squad. We got stuff that we're giving away. We're doing like the whole sort of, education packet, free download. We just did a Marie Kondo, your finances webinar. It's free. All of you guys are getting that. So find our girls out there. But I think that's exactly right. It's like you need to hear the information. You need to learn the language of finance, and then you need to apply it to go build that wealth. And it doesn't matter where you're at in the wealth spectrum. You can start, right? And that's what we're about to do. And I think in terms of cultural relevance too, I looked around and I said, is women of color on Wall Street? Where are we? Where are we in finance? If you look at retirement commercials, it's old white men. I was like, that ain't me. That's not even my dad, by the way. Right? So where are we? And I said, we need to represent. So we're really changing the face of finance. Right? If you think about like sort of white men are up here in terms of finance, and then maybe white women, and then like sort of, men of color, women of color on their lowest on the totem pole in terms of sort of, being representative and knowing about money. No, we're gonna change that, right? And Cardi B's out there talking about money, we're changing that.
And the thing is, it's actually not that complicated. Short is not the opposite of tall, it's the opposite of long, and it just means something's going in the pooper. Like, that's it. I mean, it sounds really fancy and complicated, it's not.
Oh yeah, that's a big secret that white men in general are keeping, like they know so much.
Really?
Oh, they don't know anything.
It's not that, I mean, they do know some things, but it's not that. If I can get into Silicon Valley.
That's right.
Yeah. And y'all seen me, what's
With
up.
those sneakers.
But if I can get, truly, I have something going on up here for sure, but like, I mean, I do. I'm not
We
gonna
all
downplay it, but truly, I'm in these rooms and like, oh, so these like titans of industry, they just, I think the difference between a brilliant woman and a smart guy is marketing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, I think there's a thing about looking stupid where you're like, I don't want to start asking the questions. I don't, because like on my podcast, we did the 4th episode, I think, is about investing. And my first question was, what is a stock? Like, that's where we were starting from. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people would be like, if you were like, what's a stock? They'd be like, I know what a stock is. It's, it goes ups and downs and, you know what I mean? So like, I feel like you just have to be willing to start at the bottom and be like, and just accept that you're not an idiot, that like you're just starting, like you said, learning Chinese if you don't know Chinese. So what, you mentioned this a bit, but like, what is the first thing, let's say like the people here watching, what's the first thing that they can do that's like would be like a game changer, or that they could do to fix, to be more financially stable, or to fix whatever's up? I printed out my bank statements and I went through them with a highlighter for 3 days and I cried the whole time. So I recommend it. Yeah.
So I'm a CFO, and everything I think about all day long is basically debits and credits. How much money are you bringing in? How much money is going out? I think the first thing that everyone has to do to understand their financial stability and their financial positions is really understand how much money are you spending and what are you spending it on. I think Arlan said something really interesting, which is when she was on food stamps, she had to understand like if she was going to be able to eat that day. And I think really truly understanding your priorities and understanding exactly what you have to live with is the best way to start out towards the path towards financial stability.
And it shouldn't be about deprivation. We're very big on this.
Absolutely.
I'm like, broke folks don't need to be told how to spend their money better. No, they're the ones that know how to spend their money the best because they're living on very little, right? So this is not about being patronized. It's about prioritization. It's like, okay, if this is how much I have and I'm trying to do this other thing over here, like save and put some money in some investment, then this is what I need to do. So it's about
intentional.
It's intentional. It's like, no, I don't want to do this. I'm going to put my money here. I need my $6 coffee because that's what makes me like get my work done. Right? So it's about prioritization. And again, no shame in the money game. I'm sick and tired of people telling you that like this, you're not doing it right. No, you're doing what you need to do to survive. And here, by the way, here's some information you need to understand the game. Here are the rules, right? And it's like a chess game. So you make this move and this is going to impact your taxes, or if you're opening up a business, here's how you can structure that business to make sure that you're getting the most out of your money.
Yeah. And by the way, the queen is the most powerful piece on that chessboard, but only if you know how to use her.
Right.
And I really think aside from learning the language, it's figuring out and buying the latte. Buy the damn latte,
For
please.
real.
I hate that advice. I am gonna scream if I hear the don't buy the latte advice one more time. I mean,
It was debunked in the early 2000s. I don't know why we're still doing it.
so it's like a financial diet is a lot like a regular diet. If you allow yourself small indulgences, you're not gonna end up binging later on. So allow yourself the equivalent of a Hershey's Kiss so you don't end up in the middle of the night noshing on a big old hunk of chocolate cake because you're so hungry and so deprived. Not that I've been there, or we've all been there. And so I think it's allowing yourself, when people come to me in the beginning of the year, they're like, Nicole, you'd be so proud I cut out the latte. Come May, it's like, I bought a Gucci purse because I was so good and I cut out the latte. I'm like, if you just bought the latte and you allowed yourself those small indulgences, so you came from a place of aspiration versus deprivation, then your finances will follow. And then people say to me, I just want $1 million, that's my goal. I'm like, what are you gonna do with that $1 million? First, you need a plan. It's like saying we're all going to a party in Los Angeles. And you're gonna say, great, where's the party? What street is it on? What am I wearing? Like, I have questions about this party, right? Same thing goes for your financial life. If you don't have a destination, how are you gonna get there? So maybe you need more than $1 million. I don't know, maybe you need less than $1 million. First, it's about figuring out the life you want and then reverse engineering to figure out how to get the money to live the life you want.
Can I just say, we would make a really great girl band?
Totally. We already got the mic.
Yeah.
It's the Spice Girls. It's fully the Spice Girls.
And I interviewed a woman named Dr. Pamela Jolly on the first episode of Your First Million, and she said, I asked her that question about the latte. She said, buy the latte and then go buy Starbucks stock.
That's right.
Do both.
Well, it's also not a one-time thing, and I think this is the other piece that irritates me, even with all of the apps, right? It's not set and forget. Just because you put some money in Acorns and it's $3, like that's a start, but that is not a retirement plan, right? Money is in your life constantly. You are making money. You made a money decision to come here.
You sure did.
Right, $600-800. Like you could have put that money in stock and made it grow, but you decided
Or the
to invest in
200 one that I
yourself.
sold somebody. Thank
Right,
you.
so we're always making money decisions is the point. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah, you do have to monitor it, and you do have to be like in full. It is like a full-time job, unfortunately, on top of like your regular job, which is why we've made it our regular jobs. We beat the system. And also, I also just want to say that like, in terms of the latte, I think also there's a specific thing for women of like, why do you get your nails done? Why do you get your hair done? Whatever, who for people who do that. And it's like, well, but I just read a thing where it was like, how hard it is to even get a job interview if you look a mess. Like, of course, like there's the top thing of like, oh, like you want to, hey, we don't want to hire her because she's like not wearing makeup or whatever the fuck, and then it's like, why did you, and in the same breath, he'll be like, well, why did you buy that foundation? I don't know, bitch, why didn't you hire me in sweatpants? Sorry.
Why don't you pay us a fair wage?
Why do our razors cost more? Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Why did you redline us for 20 fucking years?
Hell yeah. This leads to my next question. I'm so glad you brought that up. Okay. So the system is pretty stacked against marginalized people, dating back to slavery, redlining, lack of AIDS research funding, anti-abortion laws, immigration laws, you name it. So are there any like small actions that you would say specifically for women or minorities or the LGBTQ community to be represented? Because I've seen I spoke to someone on my show about how he worked in like retirement marketing, and he was like, well, what if we showed like a gay couple? And they were like, nah. Like there's this implication that I guess we either don't have money or we're not. I think for a lot of minorities, you don't have money, you're not worth marketing to, and like or sadly, you won't live that long.
That was sobering.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or it's an opportunity. And I think that's exactly why My Money, My Future exists. We have an arbitrage opportunity. If the big financial service companies don't want to pay attention to women, people of color, LGBT, queer, immigrants, you name it, there's $2 trillion out there that we're about to grab.
Absolutely.
I'll go talk to them. I'll go teach them what they need to know to invest and to build wealth in their communities. Exactly what Arlan's doing with the fund. I mean, this is serious business. We're talking about a demographic shift here that's about to happen, and we can close the racial wealth gap. We can, but it's going to take all of you to invest in all of us, and we're going to need to support each other in that endeavor.
Women make up more of the population. I don't know why you're leaving us on the floor. So
money on the table.
Money on the We don't want to. I love when people are like, well, we don't want to invest in a queer thing. And I was like, have you ever seen how dedicated? We're still talking about the L word. Like, have you ever seen how dedicated we are to shit?
Talked about it yesterday.
And it doesn't even have to be good, and we'll pay for it.
Yeah. Even after the third season, we still talk about it.
Still talk about it.
That's dedication.
You just have to make one, and we'll be okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many of you guys have been freelancers ever, but how do you feel about like the culture of multiple jobs or like, people being hired as permalancers or things like that? Is that something worth doing? Is that something people should be upset about? What do we think?
Who's upset about it?
Oh, I mean, there's like no benefits and like, they don't pay very well and
There's a lot of opaque. Is it opaqueness? Is that the word?
opaqueness?
Opaqueness
yeah.
around how they're getting paid and what they're getting paid and what the customer's actually paying and I think on the side of the freelancer,
Yes.
that I love the idea of like having a little bit more control of your life and choosing things, and some things may be fun for you, but on the other side there's it's just like the same with anything. It's like any corporation. It's like the other side really needs to pay attention to how they're treating people because they think they're too big to fail. But that's really ultimately the people are going to be their downfall either way. It's either going to be customers who don't stand for how they're treating people, or it's going to be the people who are their workers who are just going to unionize or rise up. And there was a little bit of that with Lyft and Uber those days where people boycotted, it didn't shut down the system, but it really had an effect. I think it caught people's attention, and so more and more of that will happen. And like this generation is all about marching and going into the streets, and so
Definitely join unions for your work.
yeah.
I mean, I think the average millionaire has 7 sources of income, so I'm all about that side life hustle game. And I employ a lot of freelancers myself, and what I would say from the flip side is you gotta ask. I think that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. And so when it comes to stipends or transportation stipends or health stipends or other things, when people ask, I am like, all about it. But I'm not gonna necessarily just open kimono and suggest it.
Sorry. Open kimono, I just, so many.
You went there for a second.
Because it's guys say that all the time in business, you're just like, please close the kimono. Just close it up. I forgot I was on stage, I'm sorry.
Put a padlock on the kimono.
I thought I was watching TV, I'm sorry, my bad.
But I will say for all of the freelancers out here, I think now is the time though to start thinking about how you are going to carry that burden of retirement on your shoulders, because so that's where the structuring comes in. As a corporate lawyer kind of like head, I'm like, okay, there's things that you can do, because the system is kind of fucking us in that way. They're shifting the responsibility basically of a economic sort of foundation in terms of 401ks and having a pension, and so they're putting that responsibility on you all, and then they're not paying you as much. So let's be very real that you now have that burden and responsibility to take care of that. If you come to My Money, My Future, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is a lot around how you can structure your finances to create your own 401k, how to protect yourself in the future.
Because you can, and everybody should open up an IRA. That's like
Sure,
no-brainer.
Roth IRAs are
too.
great, yeah.
Yeah, if you have one option in retirement, we can go there if you want, but I'm...
Yeah. The different types of IRAs that you can like look into, having your own 401k. The retirement is the thing I get asked about a lot.
Yeah.
And like how to do that, especially as a freelancer.
Yeah, and that's like I think we're talking about a couple of different things too, because one is freelancer, you have a kind of expertise and you kind of own your business and you freelance out. And then there's the working for the DoorDash or Uber or Lyft. And there's probably a hybrid solution there that puts you back in the driver's seat. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
I'm learning from the best of it.
Yeah, it's a mix of politically getting involved in like raising minimum wage or changing the overhauling the welfare system or things like that, because there is like a thing of like working these multiple jobs. Like I typed in one time like side hustles for, and it was like side hustles for, and it auto completed like teachers, nurses.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's dark. Like those are jobs that should pay enough.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So, yay, clap for darkness.
Is it realistic for everybody to have their own gig? Like, is it realistic for us all to be, should we be saying that everyone should be starting their own thing? Or should we be trying to fix the system that already exists?
Yeah, so when I worked for a company, that shall not be named, I had a YouTube channel on the side, and they were very upset about it. And they always kind of wanted me to shut down that. But then when layoffs came around, or when like stuff became unbearable and we quit, it was imperative that we had this side thing, because we jumped to it and we were able to like make money in the meantime doing this other channel. So like I think companies are not your friends, and I think a lot of times people will devote their entire life or like future to a company, and then they'll get laid off, or the company will just like not treat them correctly, and then they don't want to leave because they don't have anything else going on. So I do think that you need to be away. You can love working for a place and you can like be super devoted to it, obviously, but you like need, in my experience, something else that you have going on, because anything could happen. The company could fold, like anything could happen. Right. And so you got to look out for number one, while also like doing your best at your job, But
I think there's the idea that, I would love to debunk that a ton of entrepreneurial experts or whatever will say, go out and do what you love. like burn your corporate bra, like YOLO, FOMO,
yeah.
whatever. And I didn't have that luxury. I needed to get a job. I needed to make money, and I needed to love the shit out of what I got. I needed to love what I did, not do what I love. I didn't have the luxury to do what I love. And so, yeah, I started talking to a bunch of old rich white dudes about money, and then I wanted to be a writer when I was growing up, sit under a tree and write poetry. And I ultimately became a writer, just not the kind I expected. And so I used the platform that I had, and I tried to figure out what the opportunities were and how to make that my own.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, have your book that you're writing, you know what I mean? Have your thing on that you're looking out for yourself a little bit.
Number one.
I wanted to talk about, I guess, like, investing. How do you do that? How do you educate yourself about that? Where do you start?
Well, you pick up our flyers because you're going to get all that information if you download our PDF.
Yes.
We got a whole workbook on that.
Ramona
We
has
have a
2
class.
revenue streams going at once right now. I love it.
Yeah, like we want people to walk away with a resource, right?
Yeah,
I mean, because
yeah.
this is a longer conversation. We can give you the quick 411, but you really need to. We want to empower you to actually understand it, so you know what you're doing before you go talk to a financial advisor. Before you put an investment, even into LFS, we love LFS. You need to know what you're doing. And that's what we're here to help to make that bridge. An investment helps you create that fuck you fund. I always say what's really important, taking it back to like, why is this personal? Because when the first thing I learned about money was my grandmother told me, you always have to have money under your mattress because you don't want to depend on a man. She was a victim of domestic violence for many, many years. And for women, this is personal, right? It's personal about when you need to leave that job because someone's got their foot on your neck. This is about
You are a lesbian
creating-
and no man is in sight.
Yeah, exactly. And an investment is a tool to get you to that fuck you fund to do whatever it is that you need to do at that point.
Yeah, Paulette Perach, who's the writer, calls it the fuck off fund, which is like in case like there's financial abuse in your relationship, and Ellevest, by the way, is a great company that is for women in investing. But yeah, in case like you're at a job and suddenly your boss is sexually harassing you, like whatever it is, something where particularly women need to be protecting themselves, unfortunately, with like a separate fund.
And I think
In the finance world, that's called diversification.
Yes,
Diversifying your
diversification.
portfolio.
Yes, diversification. Yeah.
this isn't exactly the question, but I just want to make sure I remember to say it because I just thought about it. I think also if you're in the kind of category where you don't have a lot of money right now, like, or you don't have like that security, I know from experience, and we probably all do, but it's like there's some people who are like this and some people are not. Anytime I'd have any money, like I got some money, from a gig or something, it would almost feel like it was burning a hole in my pocket. It would almost feel like this is control, this is power for the first time in months, and I need to be able to prove to myself that I have control, so I'm going to go purchase this thing or have this extravagant meal or something. And I remember doing that often, and I have to stop myself now from thinking, and it's this idea that it's going to go away.
Yeah.
It's going to go away anyway, and you have to enjoy yourself. So there's this little thing, if it may even be just having a moment with yourself to kind of like do some self-therapy and say, it's okay, this isn't the last time you're going to see money, and kind of believe in yourself a little bit more, because then you don't always feel like, and this may be just a few percentage of the people here, but then you don't always feel like you're chasing something, and you kind of, that then perpetuates, you feel shame that you did that, and then it just keeps going and going.
Yeah.
Well, it's the humanities part that's the most difficult, right? The math, like a fifth grader can figure out when it comes to investing. It's all the stuff that's like, it's the critic in between your ears, right? She, like the mean girl inside your head.
Yeah. Mine is British too, so it's really, it's really,
She's real British.
Oh my God. Speaking of, yeah. So we have a question from Kayla S. from the Girl Boss Digital Community. I and other people that I know have found it difficult to raise our rates, not because clients have reacted negatively, but because we ourselves have a hard time grasping our true value. What confidence-boosting methods would you suggest for entrepreneurs and service providers to help us feel more empowered and deserving of charging higher rates? And this could go for salary negotiation too. You're a CFO.
Yeah.
So I always tell people on my team and at GOAT, I want everyone to feel comfortable to talk about money. I do not want this to become a dirty topic. But the way in which we have a really productive conversation is you're informed and I'm informed. You have to know your worth. You have to do the market research to understand what is the market clearing price for this service and what are people willing to pay. And understand that you are worthy, that what you're producing is valuable, and make the ask. I love that Nicole had mentioned that, you have to make the ask.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Marilyn Monroe or Wayne Gretzky who said you miss 100% of chances you don't take. It was one of them on Instagram.
It was a poster, for sure.
I created the Money School and the Boss School. You can head over to moneyschool.com or thebossschool.com, where I created scripts, actually, because we hear this a lot, like, ask for more, go out, get a raise. And it's like, cool, I get it, I get the idea of it, but how do I do that? So I created just like a whole role-playing situation.
Oh yeah, role play it with people before you go in.
Yeah, 100%. Like role play it with your dog, role play it in the mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, just feel comfortable having that conversation and be ready with other options. So we talked about earlier, I'm still on the kimono thing. I'm trying to figure out how to how to respond to it. But we talked about the idea of an overall compensation package, not just being a base salary. So thinking of other perks, thinking of transportation perks or health perks, or getting your cell phone bill paid for or whatever. So thinking about all of it, getting Friday off, getting whatever else might be more valuable. That's right. That's right. So always having like another option aside from just a pure money package.
Yeah. I always just put a 30% woman of color, you underpay me fee on there. I swear, no, when I negotiate, because I'm like, you're gonna try to underpay me at least 30%. And then they're gonna negotiate down, and so then we'll get to some place that actually makes some sense.
And especially, I found if you're working in media and stuff, if you're a minority of any kind, your job will be your job, and professional minority will also be your job. So I would do my work, and then I would also have people come up and be like, "Can you read this and make sure it's not homophobic?" And I'd be like, "That's not part of my job, but I also don't want you to make a homophobic video, so I guess now it is part of my job." And I was
tax.
That's the tax. I'm not getting paid for that. So, and also, you're expected then, I was expected to be involved in like planning queer events outside of work and, all this kind of like stuff that I don't think like white dudes at the job were getting asked to do. I should have gone up to them and been like, "Can you make sure this isn't hateful to straight people? Just read this. Can you make sure it is hateful to straight people? Thank you."
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I've always had a hard time, until recently, I don't anymore, had a hard time placing the right value on what I do and who I am and all of that. And I mean, just terribly. It tanked 2 companies that I started a while ago just because I was undervaluing. And one of the ways that I learned how to start being better at that, because this is about an agency, right? This question, is I started doing it when it came to speaking. So I used to have really bad stage fright, terrible stage fright, and so I wasn't going to speak. And then a couple of years ago, I decided to speak. Ramona was on that first panel.
We were on the same panel.
And so about a year went by, and I didn't charge to speak because I was working for my company, and that was fine. And then my schedule got so busy that I was like, I can't not charge. I'm going to start charging so I can say no to people because I have to stay focused. So the first time I went out, I asked for the number that I came up with, and I had someone tell me what that number was, a friend of mine, because I couldn't even come up with it. And they told me, and I said, "Oh, gosh, okay." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to ask." And the first people said, "No, absolutely not. We're not going to pay that. That's ridiculous." And I said, "Okay." Being able to take that no was the most important part of this whole thing for me when it came to it. But being able to accept the no, the second people said, "Absolutely not." And I said, "Oh, well, now I didn't want them to say yes, but now I'm getting a complex. This is, I'm like, oh, okay." But it was like, it's okay. Going out there and taking that. The third, this is 3. The third said, "Actually, we had twice as much in our budget for you." And that became my rate. So anytime you have to negotiate anything, and of course there's all these variables when it comes to you have to put food on the table, if you have children, I wouldn't be able to relate to, there's so many things, but if you can get to the point where you can accept rejection, You have completely turned it on its head. You've completely taken over the power and the leverage. And the leverage is like my favorite part of any business transaction.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Amazing.
also about really showing what the value is, and it's just saying to a boss, like, I deserve this, or I should get a raise. It's like, first of all, also, when you're in the mirror practicing, ask yourself, am I good at my job? Because a lot of people are like, my boss sucks. It's like, maybe you actually are not awesome right now, and you need to step it up, like, if we're being honest. And when people ask me for more, I love when they show me the ROI. Like, I run a business. If you're
have
making me
receipts.
more money, I am going to give you more money all day. If somebody's like, hey, I took this client out for a $10 coffee and it yielded $10,000 of business, like, I'm going to give you a coffee fund all day, every day. Like, go to coffee, I'll give you an expense fund. But if you can show me, like, we put together presentations for so many other aspects of our jobs and our careers, but we don't do it when it comes to us, to actually show what our worth is. And so I think that's the best way to actually display that.
Have receipts. Okay, I think we're going to take questions from the audience now. Hello. Okay, go for it.
Y'all are amazing.
Thank you.
You're
Yes.
amazing.
All right, I'll take it.
I don't know. I feel like, what is your best advice? I'm first generation American, Mexican American. What means 6 figures? What should I do? It's my first time I cried. What happens now?
Ooh, yeah. Well, get on our platform. And congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, so this is your first opportunity to start building wealth for your family and your community. This is a big deal. So, like, you know, there's lots of elements, right? So you got to watch the budget. Don't go crazy with all that money coming into the bank. And then you got to think about your retirement plan. You got to think about life insurance. Are you going to be taking care of your parents? Like, what's that horizon? Are you getting married? You got a big purchase. So there's a lot of different pieces, but definitely be putting as much money as you can into your 401k and taking a match if they have it. Then if you have money left over, you want to open up that Roth IRA.
Don't change your lifestyle. I got some money and I moved, and then I immediately had to move back to a smaller place. I
You got a reality check.
fully balled out at first, and then was like, "You're an idiot." Thanks. Go for it.
Hi, my name is Maya Brooks. I'm a product manager at I Fund Women. We're a crowdfunding ecosystem for women-led business.
Love them.
And we actually sourced our community for questions. And one of the questions that we get a lot from entrepreneurs is, how do I make the ask from an investment perspective? And I know we have some investors on stage. Hi, Arlan. How do you make the ask, whether you're a small business or you're just getting started, you're an early stage business, for people to invest in you?
It's all about preparation. So I can tell you what doesn't work is being aggressive. There's confidence and there's aggression. And the reason that I started my fund originally was because I wanted to start a company and I wanted to get investment for it. And so I just wanted to learn everything I could about the other side of the table. And so I have that standard in my head when I talk to founders. And it's about, you can see, there's money being invested and this person has money, or they're going to invest money. And you can just kind of skip all these steps and say, can you invest in me so I can get started? Unless we came out the womb together, you're probably not going to get that check from any investor. So it's really about doing all of your research that you possibly can. And that there's no measurement of that. It's just no more than I do about your company and about your market and about your lane. And that's the first the base step of it, is to just have this encyclopedic, is that the word, anyone? Thank you. We're in college, somebody help me out. Knowledge of what you're working on, because that's almost free to learn. That's almost free. If you have access to Wi-Fi, it's free to learn that. If you can go to Google, you can learn that. And so 80% of the time when someone pitches me, when it's when they think they have that one shot, which, by the way, you don't have one shot, you have several shots in life. If you think you have one shot, it's not the right thing you're working on. But 80% of the time, they don't know this other competition that I can pull out of the sky with my limited knowledge of what they do. Or even worse, they know about it, but they don't consider it competition. It's all about knowing more than I do, and not needing and knowing that you will keep going even if I say no, because I will say no many more times than I'll be able to say yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Next question.
Hi. So this is not a question, it's actually a comment, and piggybacking off of your point, I just wanted to thank you. I've pitched you, Arlan, at least 3 times over the past 3 years, and you respond to all of my emails, which is not something that investors do, and I don't mean to like send hundreds of emails your way, but I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate that. And each time you're like, not quite this, or there's actual feedback that doesn't send you into a tailspin.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
So thank you.
I appreciate it. What's the name of your company?
Tinsel, it's an app game.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Respond to emails, guys.
You
Okay,
can.
what's up?
It's not always easy.
Thank you, ladies, for being here. I think this might be another Arlan question.
Okay.
So my question is, I recently released a collaborating platform for women to help them get easier access to brand partnerships.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm too early in the stage for a VC, so I actually plan to release a crowdfunding campaign on iFund Women in a few weeks.
Woo.
But I also,
That's great.
their team is really great, by the way.
Yeah, iFund Women.
But I also want to also be prepared in potentially pitching to angel investors. So my challenge is the right approach. I don't want to just jump out there and send my pitch deck out to people that don't want it, that aren't interested. And I'm not 100% positive that my strategy is going to be the best, which is just sending them a very brief introductory email basically asking, would you be interested in even receiving a pitch deck? Is that the correct approach, or would you recommend sending it from the jump?
No. I don't think you should send it from the jump, because if that's the only impression they get, it may not. If you don't even think it's ready, then you shouldn't. I think you have a great opportunity, though, with the iFund Women campaign. If you can get very small checks, but a lot of people involved. Like if you can get people, I don't know what the minimum is, but if you can get a lot of people doing the minimum, let that be the foundation of it. And then take that out to the angels who can put 5, 10, 25,000 in and kind of go step by step. Because you may say, I don't know what you're raising or whatever, but if you say, look, 100 women or 1,000 women who would use this product have already said they wanted to exist by putting their credit card down, that's a lot you can take to an angel
And
investor.
I'm raising funding to release version 2 of the platform. So it's already out. We already have users. We already have interest.
Yeah, but the money part is the part that gets people's attention.
Okay.
So if you're going to use iFund Women, use it not only to raise the actual capital, use it as a marketing tool.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
I think we just have time for one more. So you want to hit it?
Hi, my name is Michaela, and I work for an arts nonprofit, and I feel like a lot of women tend to be drawn towards nonprofits or creative careers as like nurturing people, but those industries obviously don't pay as much, and a lot of people will say you don't deserve to make that much money because you're choosing to work in a field that doesn't make a lot of money. Is there any way or any advice on like dealing with that conversation?
You know Krav Maga? Right. Who are these people? I'm sorry, those people, first of all, get them out of your lives.
Yeah.
Out of your life. Get those
No,
people
it's
out
the
of
people that are like, oh, you majored in English, you majored in STEM or whatever.
Yeah. It's a good question. Someone here probably could give a better answer.
Like, who hurt you?
First step is Krav Maga.
You know, like men, like when in the past, like men were mostly nurses and it was like a respected position. And then at some point, I don't know, they went to war and then women became nurses and then everyone was like, never mind, this is a stupid profession. Like, it's just like a way of thinking that needs to change. I don't know. That's also a thing where, like, you know, I said that there's like side hustles that you can look up that are like, and it's specifically for teachers or nonprofit people, the people who are actually doing stuff to like better our society.
And if they didn't give birth to you or pay your rent, like who cares what their opinion is? Like honestly, who cares what their opinion is?
Yeah. RuPaul says if they're not paying your bills, pay them no mind.
RuPaul.
So, okay, I think Krav Maga, probably that's the best thing you're going to end on. Right? Are we supposed to end,
I think that's
guys?
it. Yeah.
Tight.
There's like a hook over here. I'm going to get it first.
I don't know. Thank you so much for everyone who came. I really appreciate it. And thank you to our panel.
Yeah.